Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 2025 Heather M. Morgan Climate Risk Adaptation Lecture Series. It's been a wonderful day of learning here at the Waterfront Alliance. I'm Vicki Cerullo, Director of Urban Engagement at the New York Climate Exchange. Waterfront Alliance is one of our wonderful community partners. It's really been such a privilege to serve on the selection committee of this lecture series, sponsored by AECOM, that honors Heather M. Morgan, who is a climate risk adaptation expert, a leader in her field, but even more importantly, a passionate educator, joyful colleague, and a friend to many of you in this room. In countless stories from her friends and colleagues, which are shared regularly on our advisory committee calls, Heather's commitment to breaking down complex subjects so that communities had all of the information they needed to meaningfully participate in the process and make informed decisions affecting their lives was clear and so important to her. We know that she would be so thrilled with this year's speaker, Kang-Jeon Yoo, who arrived from Beijing Sunday night just for this program and this afternoon's dialogue session. Kang-Jeon, who I've had the pleasure to meet just last night, is a leader in ecological urbanism and climate resilience. His Sponge City, Sponge Planet concept, which many of you are familiar with, has shaped China's ecological policies and earned global recognition. Kang-Jeon founded Turnscape, a renowned firm specializing in eco-friendly, climate-resilient design. With over 1,000 projects across 250 cities, Turnscape focuses on nature-based solutions addressing climate challenges such as flood management and urban resilience. His work has received numerous awards, definitely an overachiever, Kang-Jeon, including 16 ASLA Excellence and Honor Awards, 9 WAF Awards, 7 AZ Awards, the Wholesome Asian Pacific Award, and the ULI International Excellence Award. And that's not all. His prestigious honors include the Cornelia Hahn Oberlander Prize, IFLA's Sir Geoffrey Jellicoe Award, and the Cooper Hewitt National Design Award. So impressive. We are so honored that he is here with us today, and we know that you will find him as compelling as the selection committee did. So without further ado, please welcome Kang-Jeon Yoo.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much for such a wonderful introduction, and it is indeed my great honor to come here to make this Heather Morgan lecture series. And Heather, I listened to her talk a month ago, basically, and that's one of the reasons I come such a long way to come here. And I just saw her voice resonate my thinking. I think if she's still alive, she will be happy for what I'm going to talk. So show my respect. Sponge Planet. So that's my vision, my concept. So I come from Sponge City to Sponge Planet. So people will say, wow, this has a big vision. How can we create Sponge Planet? First of all, the planet is in crisis, no doubt, okay? Only bold, new thinking can save it. We spent 30 years trying to solve the problem of climate change, but only become worse. Right? It becomes worse. And that's very new. That's last month's data from Berkeley. You can see climate is warming. Right? It's changing. It's so obvious, of course. The fact is more drought, more fire, more flood, and certainly more habitat loss. That's the China coast area. 60% of Chinese cities will be underwater. You can imagine. Yeah. As we did 20 years ago, we did this analysis in China. This water system, you can see. And already 70% of GDP and 70% of population were under the flood damage every year. So high risk, 70% of the GDP produced in this floodable, high risk area. That's in all countries' situation. But it's a solution today, international financial investment, you can see here. We still keep investing. $7 trillion invested on something harmful, right? We call it nature negative investment, right? And $1.7 trillion national subsidization is about creating something that's actually more harmful. Only $0.2 trillion is invested in something we call the positive. Recovering forest, wetland, more nature-based solutions. You can imagine this will going on, continue to worsen our situation. You can imagine 80% of the world is underdeveloped. US and the European is only account for 20% of the world so-called population or whatever development. 80% is underdeveloped, and it's going to double carbon emission, continue to worsen the situation. So we are facing the challenges. The first challenge is, so what is the solution to mitigate this climate? We keep investing in these kind of technologies. We consider those technologies to be green. You can see, we think windmill turbines are green, solar panels are green, hydropower is green, but actually, so-called green technologies are not necessarily sustainable, right? What are you going to do with the solar panels 20 years later? What are you going to do with turbines 50 years later? What are you going to do with the hydropower dams? Look how they're destructive, so how they are disrupting the whole system, right? So that's a challenge. So-called green technology may not necessarily to be ecologically sustainable. What about adaptation? As I said, World Bank, AIIB, all these big financial institutes just keep investing in these kind of technologies. Higher and higher dams, flood walls, channelizing river, bigger and bigger tunnels. Last year, London built big tunnels. New York is going to build big walls, right? Indonesia is going to build big walls along the sea coastline. So 90% investment go to this kind of adaptation technologies, so-called, basically concrete and steels. But what will happen? They fail and keep failing and will fail. You can see they fail in New Orleans, they fail in Libya, you see, in dry land. They fail in China, they fail in Brazil. Right? Last year, Brazil, 5 dams failed. Right? So that's in Brazil. I was in Brazil last year. Disastrous. The failure is not because of flood itself, not because of the precipitation. It's simply because of failure of the infrastructure. The gray infrastructure, concrete dams. So that's in China. The failure of dams that cause disasters, killing 500 people, 300 people. Yeah. So, so-called infrastructure or adaptation strategies are simply myopic. Not only that, they cause more carbon emissions, cause more problems. 8%, okay, 8% of carbon emission come from concrete alone. You can imagine. And it's growing. It's growing, yeah, because India is going to develop. Southeast Asia is going to develop. Africa needs to develop. And we keep investing in these kind of technologies. Why is it fail? Why is it fail? Now here is the situation when this kind of infrastructures were first invented in European mild climate. Engineers know that. New York, the drainage system in New York was designed for only 4 inches precipitation, because it follows a European model, all right? European climate, very mild. Each month they have evenly distributed precipitation, you can see. But certainly today we have climate change. Just little climate change here in New York, by the way. You can see last year I was here. It caused a problem because the precipitation beyond 5 inches, right? And you cause something uncomfortable, right? No death, but uncomfortable. But what will happen in other parts of the world? For you guys here, it's a matter of comfortability. For other part of the world, it is about survival. Look at the precipitation patterns, the climate. The monsoon climate here, you see, that's in Beijing, that's in Shanghai. That's an issue of survival. 2012, Beijing drowned 79 people on the street, right? Certainly this will never happen here, maybe, yeah? But it will happen because of climate change, because of monsoon-like. So climate change is basically monsoon-like. More and more like the Southeast Asia, that's South American areas. That's the Beijing flood this year, you can see. So it is an issue of survival. And it is an issue of survival to most part of the world, right? Beside the European and North American, you will see most of the part of the world is actually worse, right? It's an issue of survival. So we have to think about what kind of strategy we're going to use to fix the world, and how can we survive? Need a big, bold solution. By the way, when we talk about flood, there are 3 kinds of flood. One is local. You know, last October, last May here in New York is a very local flood. It caused uncomfortable situation. But sea level rising here in New York, 3 millimeters every year, is a global issue, right? It is a global flood. Certainly you have regional flood, the Hudson River. But solving the local flood is easy, right? It's easy. You have enough space to solve the local flood. But to solve the global flood, the sea level rising, you need to understand that all kind of investment here is making nonsense. You have to invest in other parts of the world. Why? Because 40% of the sea level rising is actually caused by the depletion of groundwater from Mississippi River, from the Central America, from China, Yangtze River, or from Amazon. 40%. So the water should be held in the ground, in the underground. It should be held on the bulb, not in the sea. But we drain all the water into the sea. Pump out the groundwater for irrigation to grow grow wheat in Brazil, in Central America. So those are cause the problem, actually. And I've had a few people talking about that. We think of all this carbon in the sky. But actually, water is the key here, right? not only adaptation, but also mitigation, right? And so what about nature-based solution? Yes, everyone going to talk about nature-based solution. Even the Army Corps going to talk about nature-based solution now. Yeah. But is plant a tree enough? Where you invested? This is 5% of global total investment. Where are you going to invest it? Plant a tree or recover wetland? Maybe not. Yeah, maybe not. Yeah. So that's so there's many factors are correlated with climate change. Carbon is one of that. Okay, carbon is one of that. And maybe some scientists say it's only a minor. Okay, carbon only 0.04% of the air. Certainly, it is a factor. It's a greenhouse gas, cause greenhouse gas effect. But water is more important. Water will amplify all urban and global heat, warm, amplified. Water accounts for more than that. So this is how water can affect. Water form cloud. Scientists, that's very recent scientists, by the way, research, right? For almost 20 years. The physicists understand. The cloud, in the high cloud, catch the radiation, warm up. The low cloud actually shade over the planet, cool off the Earth. And the cloud is made from evaporation, aspiration, wetland, trees, and grassland. So that's, you see, water vapor is major factors. But in the past 30 years, the low cloud decreased dramatically, and the high cloud increased. Now that's a real issue, okay? Cause global warming, right? The key, that's why come to it's still a hypothesis, by the way, but it's supported by the data. It's a land-based water-driven approach may be the key to solve the problem, both mitigation and adaptation. Adaptation is very clear to understand because water is a problem, flood and drought. We have to adapt these kind of issues. But by restore the sponge system on the land, we can virtually mitigate the climate change, right? Now, that's come up my concept, sponge city and sponge watershed and sponge planet. Sponge slope terraces to catch water as much as possible. So the three principles: retain water. Whenever water falls, retain it. Don't drain away, right? Whenever water creates these creek, the flows, slow down. Don't channelize it. Like torrent, flush away, right? Don't flush away. So, but today, most of the investment is trying to flush away the flood. So, and at the end, when water accumulates in the lake, in the ocean, it's already too late. You should be able to embrace it. There's no reason to build a wall. As I said, water always wins. All wall will collapse someday. And when it collapses, it becomes disastrous because you are accumulating the risk, accumulating the force of nature. I call it boxing. Instead of boxing, you play Tai Chi with water. Let water come in, embrace it. So these three principles make sponge city and sponge planet totally opposite to the conventional solution we are using today, right? Building the dam to accumulate water, channelize the river to drain away flood, and build a seawall to fight against water. These are today's solution. And that cost $7 trillion investment. So if we can reorient the investment into the sponge idea, I have to say we maybe only use 40% of the money, or we need only a quarter of the money will be enough to fix the globe. So that's why we need a totally different kind of infrastructure. Gray versus green. The inspirations come from monsoon culture. I spent 17 years working with the land as a farmer, as a kid in the village. I know how to retain water. Terracing the slope, use very simple tool, by the way, very simple tool. Terracing the slope to keep the water whenever water falls, ponding and islanding and the pond, dike and pond system whenever you have too much water. Now this has been practiced in Southeast Asia, in monsoon region, and also in South America. When you visit South America, in Maya people already terracing the slope, right? Maya people and the Aztec people already create a floating garden in Mexican lake, right? It's a former Mexican lake. Now the lake disappeared, but it's built as a city in the lake. That's wrong by Spanish colonizers. They built the city, take off the lake. But the early settlers, early indigenous people, they created floating gardens, live with water. So those are monsoon, I call it monsoon culture. Literally adaptation to this changing climate. So we did a study how in the past 2,000 years, the Chinese city adapt to this kind of monsoon flood. We did about 100 cities research to see how the city built in the water and how the water built in the city. Now these are the city patterns that so we are inspired by these thousands of years experience. Right? This kind of city still exists today. And certainly you will see some city in European, like Venice, is also a way to adapt to the flood, adapted to the build the city in the ocean. Right? So these are the inspiration how we build the cities. And so upgrading, but we certainly not go back to the past. Okay, we are not go back to the primitive civilization. We need to upgrade those. So we call it synthesizing, the indigenous practice, modularize it, performance test, strengthen its function, and eventually develop this engineering, new engineering-based, nature-based engineering solutions. Modularize it so that we can do it by today's machinery, efficiently, fast, economically. So that's our strategy in the past, I developed in the past 30 years almost, including terracing, weiring, diking and ponding, and islanding. Now these are indigenous strategies, and transforming into modern engineering technologies that can be practiced globally at large scale, not the peasantry, where become modernized, become engineers. So it creates this kind of solution, transforming the global surface. We have transformed the global surface in the past 1,000 years, and particularly in the past 100 years. Why don't we transform again? Use very simple technology to solve the problem of global climate issues. So large, national, continental scale, regional, right? We need to identify where is to touch it. That's acupuncture, where to touch it. Minimum touch, you can solve the problem efficiently. You don't have to transform the whole global surface. just the acupuncture, right? Just put ecological acupuncture. So global surface can be easily transformed, right? Now that's my imagining, and that's my test. Use very little investment, we can solve the problem immediately. If you give me 20 years, I can fix the global service. We can solve the climate issues. And not $7 trillion, not so much money actually. A quarter will be enough, right? So I did about 200 cities project in different countries, 200 cities. I mean, not a whole city, okay, only single project in 200 cities. We have built over a 600 project. I just want to show you some example to see how can be done fast, efficiently, beautifully. So this is retention at the source. This is Sanya City in Hainan Island, a tropical city. Flooded every year. And these are analyzed to see how much water actually can take the space, how much space is needed if you want to hold all the water. And you don't have to do everything. You just acupuncture some critical point, because in this area, no people. It's okay, it's fine. Only in these areas that there's conflict between settlement, between people and the nature. So we take time, investment, focused investment to create terracing, ponding, islanding. We create this central park. 1 year, just 1 year. It's in process. 3 years later, you create this beautiful sponge system. Right in the middle of the city. It's about 1 square kilometer in size. Executed in 1 year, okay? In 1 year. Before, after. Huh? Before and after. Yeah. Very inexpensive. And that's the before. Flooded, after. Cut and fill, that's before, after. And but by the way, economically you can see how this sponge system actually catalyzed the urban development. The land value, the property increased dramatically. I mean, the value of the property value increased dramatically. 400% increase in this case. That's before, yeah, that's after. And it's been tested. This was historical storm last year, 2024. Yeah? 16 inches a day compared to New York. New York is nothing. You have 5 inches, right? 3 times precipitation 1 day, okay? You see how this park resolved the problem. And days later, come back, a beautiful, resilient green space. Not just in China. We practiced just a couple years ago in Thailand. In the middle of the city, Bangkok, there was a brownfield, a tobacco factory belonged to the royal family. And the family donated the land to the city, want to give the city a gift. And the king loved tree, and the queen loved water. Right? By the way, when we come together, we actually propose this sponge idea. Simple, okay? Cut and fill. You can see how much time you needed. You imagine. Only 1 year. Only 1 machine be enough, okay? You see? Cut and fill, and it's done by army. You don't need a skill, right? By the way, you know? That's why transform in 1 year. During the COVID, there's no labor, so they say use army. That's why. Yeah, that's built. That's today. Certainly it becomes such a favorite place. Many awards, many awards, and it's in social media, they always think it's the best park in the city. Yeah. The whole process, cleaning the water. We created this pond system, the whole cleaning system. Meanwhile, recycle all the material. So concrete, just cut and pile, create this system. This polluted water, surrounding polluted water, clean it. And as more than 110 species of bird come back to the city. Species come back to the city, you can see. Immediate effect. We just sow it. We just sow it. Not even plant a big tree, just sow it. All kind of vegetation come back, army implemented. Slow down. The second strategy. Now this is in my hometown. Build this flood wall. I mean, not riverbank, concrete, because they want to flush away the flood as quick as possible. We say, no, we'll remove the concrete, give water more space, terrace it. So this is a situation you can see, similar situation anywhere in China, in Southeast Asia. Here, pollution, storm water, channelize the river, abandon the land. So create a dechannelize the river, it's a main river. The tributary should be give back to the water, retain the water whenever possible, catch it, clean it whenever possible. Any piece of land should be integrated into the system. Create a sponge city. It was before, after. Slow down the water flow. That's today, you will see. Again, the river becomes this kind of river. Slow down, clean up, and create a beautiful park, and certainly create a land with more property value, higher property value. And certainly beautiful, right? Biodiverse. So it is a holistic solution. We test this as a performance test. How we slow down the water, how we clean the water, how we can introduce, have more native species. So it's a holistic. It's not only one factor. Finally, when the water comes to the river, to the lake, to the ocean, you have to live with it. You have to embrace it. Now, we just finished a project in Jiangxi province. Before and after. The flood plain, after. This is before, devastated. This is a solution. Pond, terracing, islanding, the same solution, okay? The same techniques, the landscape solution, floodable during the monsoon season. So even it is flooded, you can see people still can use it, right? It's a lifted working system. Because the flood only comes for 1 day, for 2 days, maximum a week. There's no reason. There's no reason to build a wall, right? It just gives water more space because it go away very fast. That's after. So that's comparison. You can see during the flood, after the flood. During the flood, after the flood. Yeah. So that's why don't they embrace water? Make friends with water. And both are happy. Yeah, both are happy. That's our new project. Yeah. So what about sea level rising? Now the whole world is talking about afraid of sea level rising. As I mentioned, 60% of the Chinese cities under the threat. The threat is not because it's rising actually. The threat is come from the surge, the wave. Toronto, this Hurricane Sandy is a wave, is a surge, not because the sea level is only millimeters. So how to protect the surge is a focus. Are you going to build this wall like that? This is in Sanya, in Chinese city, in Sanya, in tropical area. That's the surge. That's not the way. As I said, water always wins, no matter how strong the wall, right? So we remove the wall. Play Tai Chi with the water. Tai Chi is a Chinese movement. Slow down, okay. Let water come in. The force, makes the force of nature. That's before. That was under construction. Wall was under construction. So I was lucky to convince the local mayor to stop this construction. Instead, I tore down the wall, actually, and let water come in. So the seawater will come in, and the fresh water comes from the mountain, and they mix together, they create blackish water. So this water will be very good for mangrove, right? For mangrove. So get a mangrove established. A year later, 3 years later, you can see, right? And certainly, you create a beautiful place for people to use. Birds come into the city. You can see people come to play here also. So think big. If we can do this piece of land, we can do the whole coast area, basically, right? Now, this is what we did for the whole, try to do the whole coast area. As I think, that's before, okay? So build a seawall like that in high coast city, But see, once they build the seawall, the vegetation disappear, yeah? This was before, no seawall, okay? Why? Because when you build a seawall, it causes salination. It's a salt deposit, right? And kills the vegetation eventually. So we designed this breathing seawall. Chop off the seawall, right? The seawall, chop off the seawall and make the seawall permeable. So that water come back to the ocean. You get a precipitation, you get a storm, and wash the salt back, and it covers the natural. The second reason we cannot build a seawall because eventually it will collapse, right? When it collapses, it causes disaster. So that's our landscape strategy. Is it before, is it design, this is imagine after, yeah? Breathing seawall, right? Before, after. It's the same section, before and after. So it's become horizontal. The surge can come in on the land and go back to the ocean, right? And the vegetation covers the whole area. And certainly you create this kind of different kind of design. Not a single strong wall, but let nature to support all, to slow down, and to be soft, to be gentle, right? That's a play Tai Chi you can see. And there's a sponge system, catch water, wash the salt, and this removed seawall, but it will turn into a pedestrian system, a boardwalk system, and certainly that's a situation. You protect the vegetation itself, and the vegetation protects the city from being flooded. This was before the fish pond, and we use the fish pond as a sponge system, actually, become soft, you see, and covered. So I'm not talking about just a park or just a piece of land. I'm talking about the whole city, like that. These are my plans 4 years ago, designed 4 years ago, the city. And that's built under construction, you see. The whole city under construction. And this wall is built already. That's today. Now, the test come. Last year, we have the historical hurricane, historical tropical storm called the Storm Yaji that killed like several hundred people in Philippines, across the ocean. And then when they come to the Hainan Island, you see, it destroys a conventional seawall. That's a conventional seawall. That destroyed, totally destroyed. But the nearby is our section. You see? Resilience, safe, because we play Tai Chi, not boxing. That's the before. That's a section here. So this is here. I don't have scientific data yet, but certainly that's a photograph. tell you the truth. Yeah? Maybe difficult for scientific model to model it, but certainly it's an experiment. So, and we have to think systematically, not just a piece, the whole system. It's a whole drainage system, the whole infrastructure. So this again in the tropical Sanya, I mean not tropical, subtropical Sanya, Haikou. This was before, literally a year, I mean, it was 2016, literally before our project. Conventional solution, dredging higher and higher walls, and never solves the problem. For 20 years, the city is just in disasters, you know. So we being adopted, right? We convince the local decision maker to use our way, a nature-based solution. So remove all the concrete, get rid of all this channelized river, concrete and industrial infrastructure, terracing the riverbank whenever possible. That's and clean the water on the way. The runoff, the urban runoff will be cleansed by this system, by nature, by biological process. And even the sewage is cleaned because there's an urban village. There's a small village. It's not connected to the urban centralized sewage system. So we use this nature to clean the sewage of the village and create this terraced wetland system. That's today, you will see, yeah? Cleansing system, clean water. The water is healthy, can be used because the biological process remove all the pollutant. 85% of nutrient, nitrogen, phosphorus can be removed by this whole process, and publicly safe water can be produced by this nature-based solution. This was before, construction process, after. I'm talking about the whole river. And it's been done 1 year, okay? In 1 year. That's built. And recycle all the material, the concrete material. And that's wetland system. That's terraced wetland system. You see, produce clean water. From dirty water to clean water. And become clean water for entertainment, certainly. Not potable yet, but certainly save a lot of water, recycle a lot of water. See, this is a whole process. Just like your sewage treatment system. Here, nature can solve the problem. Use less energy. Use less energy. By this way, you can save about 3% of energy, which was used global-wise to clean the sewage in New York. You use about 4% of energy to clean the sewage. Now, we have this system. You can see we tested, and this is performance test. Data supported all this process. 85% of pollutants can be removed by this natural process. So, to conclude, beyond carbon and beyond concrete, those are the invention of the industrial civilization. So we let water leading the way from very simple tool to solve the problem of watershed to the whole world, global, transforming the global surface. This is workable, okay? This is workable. Now, this is my very recent publication at Nature Water. I encourage you to read it. Instead of put so much money, I totally agree, okay, reduce carbon is a solution. But we should put more energy, more investment on to solve the problem down to earth, okay, down to earth, the problem of water. So that's why Spongy Planet? I get many responses from. By the way, yesterday I visited the waterfront here. Right? We should not give the waterfront to the concrete. We need it, right? It's necessary. Call it the name Hudson River Park because of waterfront. So that's why we need this kind of sponge city that solves the problem, not here, not just in New York, but to focus on maybe other part of the world. Mississippi River, Yangtze River, Amazon River, so on and so on. Yeah? So you transform the global service. Thank you. So wonderful to share with you. Yeah.
Please welcome Chris Ward, Waterfront Alliance's interim CEO and president.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So good. We're not going to do any questions. Wow. Thank you, Dr. Yu. That was really impressive. Unfortunately, we do not have time for questions, but I'm sure that was incredibly thought-provoking for all of you. So my name is Christopher Ward. I'm the acting president of the Waterfront Alliance. Previously, I was chairman of the Waterfront Alliance. And I'm delighted to see you all here again today and participating in this incredible conference. And for me, coming back and seeing the team and what we've done with all of you is really quite impressive. There have been moving presentations, there have been enlightening presentations, and then Dr. Yu's presentation is a challenging one for all of us. And I had the privilege of working with Heather Morgan, and believe me, she is smiling because this is exactly the way Heather liked to think. So I'll leave you with this one thought. So 2 years ago, a year ago, we were bursting with optimism. Funding was there, plans were there. There was an administration which was dedicated to the mission of helping finally to think about our planet and our future. And what a difference a day makes. This morning we saw the federal presentation of the decimation of the federal agenda going forward and its long-term challenges. And I think about what that day means to us and how pessimistic we might all get and how we might begin to realize that the fight is being lost. But it's not. A day does make a difference, as Dr. Yu just said. So let's all commit ourselves to creating another day, a day that is more optimistic again, where we're continuing to take the challenge that we had before and put the past behind us and take this time to truly build a better planet and follow Dr. Yu's wisdom and vision for taking advantage of another day. So thank you again for all coming. I'm sure tons of you have a lot of questions. We don't have time for it now. We're now going to go into our afternoon sessions and breakout time. And I welcome you all once again to an incredible conference. Thank you very much.